I want to bring in now Eylon Levy, he's a spokesperson. And I want to bring in now Eylon Levy, he's a spokesperson for the Israeli government. And I want to start with this breaking news right before we came on the air, this news of this freed Israeli soldier. What, if anything, can you tell us about that operation? What can you tell us about her condition? And what does that tell us about the efforts to go after and retrieve more of these hostages in the coming days?
Finally, a little glimmer of hope. 3 weeks after Hamas brutally abducted more than 240 Israelis into the Gaza Strip, including children, including babies. Our forces have gone into the Gaza Strip and rescued a young soldier, bringing her back home to her family. And I can say everyone in Israel was deeply moved and excited and hopeful that now, as the campaign continues in response to the October 7th massacre, we're going to bring more of our hostages home. You know, Hamas already released 4 hostages. They did it under pressure, Israeli military pressure and international diplomatic pressure. And we're hopeful that as our forces progress into the Gaza Strip in response to the October 7th massacre, we're going to create the conditions to put more pressure on the terrorists who perpetrated the October 7th massacre to release the rest of the hostages. No excuse, none at all, for abducting babies from their beds, literally orphaning them by shooting their parents in front of them, taking them into captivity in the Gaza Strip. We're putting more pressure on Hamas. We're calling on our allies to put more pressure on Hamas and on their supporters. And we're doing everything we can to get all of those hostages home safe to their families.
The Israeli intelligence community took a lot of heat for what happened on October 7th. Can you talk at all about the information that led you to find this soldier? I know you wanted to get into specifics of an operation here, but should people take some comfort in the fact that you were able to find this one individual in a very, very challenging environment in Gaza?
I'm afraid I can't get into the specifics, but as our troops go in, they're finding more evidence of the atrocities that Hamas perpetrated. Many people will remember the story of Shani Luke, a 22-year-old German-Israeli woman who was abducted from the Nova Music Festival. Her mutilated body was seen on the back of a pickup truck as Hamas terrorists sat astride her with an RPG. And our president, President Herzog, said in an interview with German media that soldiers found a fragment of her skull, showing that she'd in fact been at least partially beheaded after that video of Hamas terrorists parading her through the streets of Gaza. So we're hopeful as our soldiers go in, we're going to bring back hostages alive. But unfortunately, our soldiers have been going in and recovering bodies as well. And we've been clear, every single Hamas terrorist involved in the October 7th massacre is going to pay and is going to be brought to justice.
So expand on that a little bit. As we talk about this incursion now into Gaza, what's the goal at this stage of the offensive? Are you looking for hostages? Are you exacting, kind of vengeance against Hamas? What's the sort of, lay out to me the strategic imperatives here of what you're trying to do in Gaza right now?
The goal is total victory. Total victory against the terror organization that on October 7th invaded and burned, beheaded, butchered, raped, tortured, mutilated our people, abducting 240 into Gaza. We will topple Hamas from power. We will dismantle its terrorist and military infrastructure, and we'll do everything we can to bring our hostages home. That is the goal of the campaign. Hamas declared war on us on October 7th, and we're defending ourselves by making sure that the terror group, the jihadi group that perpetrated October 7th, can never do this again. This isn't about retribution. This isn't about vengeance. This is about Hamas declaring war on Israel with the worst terror attack in world history since 9/11, the worst massacre of Jews since the Holocaust. A war that, by the way, Hamas has continued with 8,000 rockets fired at our cities in the last 3 weeks. Just as I was sitting to prepare for this interview, I heard explosions overhead from interception. So we're currently still under attack from Hamas. And we're going to defend ourselves by toppling Hamas so that it can never again hurt our civilians like it did in that massacre that has shocked the world. And your network has been covering so well in bringing to the world the atrocities of October 7th.
As I don't have to tell you, Hamas isn't just a terrorist network. It's also the government in Gaza. What happens on day 2 after that organization is toppled? How much has the IDF, has the Israeli government planned for what happens in the power vacuum after what you call total victory?
We're exploring several options. There is only one thing I can tell you. When this war is over, the Gaza Strip will no longer be governed by Hamas, and it will be, whoever governs it will remember what we did to Hamas. Look, obviously it would be nice if we went into a war with a perfectly worked out plan about what happens after. But we're in this war because we came under attack in a brutal act of aggression by Hamas, and we're now fighting to repel actual violence against our people. If we can compare it to World War II, the US was attacked at Pearl Harbor, and it didn't wait to decide what it was going to do with Japan after defeating its wartime government. It returned war to Japan in order to defend the American people. The Marshall Plan came 2 years after the end of the Second World War. So I hope that when we defeat Hamas, and we will, this war will end with an Israeli victory. There's no other way that can happen. We're going to create the space to work together with the international community to rebuild the Gaza Strip in a way that it will no longer be governed by a parasitic jihadi group that subjugates the needs of the civilians in Gaza towards their genocidal goal of murdering all the Jews. And we'll be able to build something more sustainable. But for now, we're focusing on one thing: victory, removing the terror organization that perpetrated the atrocities of October 7th, because that is a reality we can simply no longer live with.
All right, Eylon Levy, thank you. Spokesperson for the Israeli government. I appreciate you making time for us tonight.